Sup? Though, if there's any videos you want me to react to, let me know that in the comment section below. Let's get it. I know officers see a lot of shit. I can't be no officer. I'm too scared.
I was a state trooper for 25 years, and through the years, I experienced it all. Or at least that's what I thought at the time. This happened quite a few years back. I was on night patrol on an interstate at about 4:30 a.m. Now, I don't know if you guys know what the show Cops is, but basically it's where cameramen would follow around real cops, filming everything that goes down. The episodes would consist of a compilation of the most interesting clips. The show's insanely popular, but unfortunately nowadays new episodes are no longer made. Back then, however, I was lucky enough to actually be featured on the show. Even though I didn't show up in many episodes, I still thought it was really cool. This night was one of the nights I had a cameraman following me around for the show. I remember his name was Joe, and was honestly a pretty down-to-earth guy. Anyway, I would usually have my car parked near a bush to hide myself from the view of oncoming speeding cars. But at this hour, I didn't really ever try to hide too much. I remember we were just driving down the interstate. Now, I didn't work in the best area. There were a decent amount of abandoned buildings visible from the road, and because of this, I adopted into my nightly routine to enter the parking lots of them, as they were hotspots for drug activity. One in particular was an abandoned gas station building. The exit for it was coming up, so I figured I might as well check it out. Joe started filming, and as we pulled up, we could both clearly see a flashlight moving around in the building. I pulled into the parking lot and put the car in park. At this point, I was almost positive some sort of drug deal was going on inside, as I could still see the flashlight moving around. But a part of me hesitated, as there were no other cars in the parking lot. I also realized if there was a drug deal going on, there would have been at least 2 flashlights visible from the outside of the building. I figured either way I'd have to investigate. I went over to the cruiser's speaker.
You don't have to do anything. At all. Nothing. Nada. Zero. Noche. I don't even know what noche means. I don't even know if that's a word or not. You should have just called backup. Or watched from a safe distance. See, with police officers and shit, like, y'all have to, it's in y'all job description, go check shit out.
Yelling out police and explaining how whoever was inside it needed to exit the building immediately. Though, right as I did this, the flashlight from inside turned off. It was now eerily silent. I decided I'd have no choice but to enter the building and to get whoever was inside to leave.
Wow.
So I did. I got out of the cruiser and proceeded to walk towards the wide open front door with Joe and his camera not far behind me. As I approached, I couldn't help but notice a terrible smell. It was as if an animal died in there and had been in there for at least a week. I peeked inside with my flashlight, once again yelling out police. Now, this gas station was small, so any sound could pretty much be heard from anywhere in the building. I stayed quiet for a second, just listening. That's when I swear I could hear what sounded like something being dragged across the floor from the other side of the building. "Who's there?" I got no response. I walked inside the building, and in one of the back rooms I could see what looked like a figure. I shined my flashlight in the figure's direction, but right as I did, whoever it was bolted and eventually left through a back exit. I started chasing after the guy, but as soon as I exited the same back exit, I didn't see anything. Almost the whole area was surrounded by a cornfield.
Oh my God. I don't know if you ever seen a cornfield. I have. In person. I was just driving past. Don't do that. Don't y'all do that. I was not in an actual cornfield. I was driving on the road, and I was like, wow, that seemed pretty high. Then I got closer, then I realized it was a cornfield. Damn. Cornfields are high, tall as shit, and they dense too. But dude, you went to a cornfield, you gotta, man, you asking to get clucked up.
Way I was gonna find this guy. but I figured I had to try.
No,
I ran out.
You don't have to try. Don't.
Some random direction, but stopped only after a few seconds, realizing it was pointless.
Yeah.
Defeated and still confused as to why the guy ran, Joe and I went back to the gas station. But what we found left behind made it perfectly clear. There, in the back room, we found the lifeless remains of a dead body. I immediately called for backup, explaining the situation.
You just now calling from no, don't call nobody. It's on you and Joe. Y'all take care of that. You talking about you gonna call backup now. You know, you had so many chances of calling backup. Get the cluck out of my face.
Unfortunately, the guy responsible was never found, and the body itself couldn't be identified. For obvious reasons, what we caught on video that night was never used in the final show.
Damn, I wanted to see that too. I'm not even gonna hold you.
I'm 22, and recently became a highway patrol officer. I would usually patrol less busy highways, and like I said, I was just recently hired, so in terms of experience, I didn't have much. I'm not gonna lie, the first few weeks were kind of stressful, especially considering us patrol officers almost always worked in one-officer cars. Though, at this point, being about 3 months in, I was a lot more comfortable with the job. I almost always worked night hours, usually from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. At first, I thought it was annoying, but the more I did it, the more I realized why. I would give out countless tickets to the late-night reckless drivers, way more than I would in the day hours. Anyway, I was driving down the highways like I usually would. It was around 2 a.m. on a Thursday, and was honestly pretty dead. I kept the car at a steady 65 miles per hour. These highways were almost completely covered by forest, so I would always try to go at a slower pace in case a deer jumped out in front of me. I was driving for around 10 minutes, and I hadn't even seen another car. Usually, I'd have at least one car pass every 30 seconds or so, even at this time of night. As I'm rounding another bend, I noticed a vehicle with its hazard lights on, maybe a quarter mile ahead of me. It was some sort of sedan, dark colored, and was angled to where only part of it was on the shoulder, while the rest of it was jutted out onto the road. As I got closer, I noticed the driver's side door was flung wide open, meaning it was pretty much covering the whole lane. I obviously couldn't ignore this. I pulled up behind the vehicle, radioed in I'd found some vehicle with its hazards on, and got out. I walked up to the car with my flashlight. The inside light of the car was on, but nobody was inside. I instantly realized how weird the whole situation was. I mean, the keys were still in the car, with the engine still on, but nobody was around. I flashed the light of my flashlight all around, but I couldn't see anything except trees. Hello? Is anyone there? About a minute passed with no response. I was about to radio in the situation when I saw something. I looked near the tree line, and I could see a man in a mask just looking at me. Not like a face mask for COVID, or a ski mask or anything normal, but one of those masks you would see in the Purge movies.
Oh my God!
I instantly raised my flashlight in reaction, with my other hand holding onto my gun in my belt. But
as soon as I saw that shit, as soon as I saw that mask, I'd have been like, alright, well, I'm gonna head on out. My shift is over. You know what? My whole career is over. I'm gonna go ahead and just start a new one. YouTube! Where you at?
as I did, it revealed at least 3 or 4 other men all just looking at me.
Oh, shit.
All of them were wearing masks and holding onto weapons. Some just baseball bats, but others had guns, with one even having a full-on pump-action shotgun. I pulled my gun from my belt, now aiming it at them, informing all of them to drop their weapons. But, of course, not a single one did. I was now slowly inching back towards my car, still aiming my gun in their direction. I honestly felt sick to my stomach. I was terrified, and my heart was beating out of my chest. That's when I could hear the clear sound of rustling in the tree line behind me.
Oh!
At that point, I'd had enough and broke all character of being a police officer.
I'm saying!
I full-on sprinted back to my cruiser and booked it out of there. As I did, I noticed at least 7 people total on each side of the road, all in the tree line with masks on. A few seconds down the road, and I requested immediate backup. But I knew I was pretty far out, and it would take at least a few minutes for anyone to arrive. Finally, after a while, a few cruisers arrived, and I proceeded to show them where it all happened. But as we showed up, there was nothing. The car was gone, and there was no sign of anyone nearby, except the tire tracks on the side of the road they left behind. The whole situation ended up becoming a big deal, and for the next few weeks we would have at least 2 or 3 officers within close proximity of the area. As far as I know, nothing further ever ended up happening. I still look back at the experience and feel if I responded differently, those guys would have been caught. But no, I ran like a coward, and now I have to live with that for the rest of my life.
You didn't run like no coward. You ran like somebody had on Adidas. That's what you did. You ran like me. Cluck, you talking about?
I still don't know whether those guys were a gang, cult, or something else. But either way, they're still out there, and that's all because of me.
Yeah, that's tough. You was only one person, Hell no. And they had guns? It would have been rats. Pizza Hut, ugh.
When I was 17, my mom had a job that required her to be out of town a lot. And because of this, my dad would often take me out to eat for a good part of my teen years. I remember one night we both decided to go to Pizza Hut for dinner. It was around 7 p.m., and my dad had just finished up his shift at work. Back then, my dad worked as a police officer, and at least at the time would work pretty normal hours. Anyways, we went to Pizza Hut and got our usual. On our way back home, I remember we were pretty deep into a conversation, though I don't remember what it was about. After a while, I noticed my dad wasn't really responding anymore. We were fairly close to our house, but still on main roads before we needed to turn into our neighborhood. At first, I thought he just lost interest, but I glanced across and noticed he was permanently looking in the rearview mirror. I asked him what was up, and he mentioned how the car behind us had been following us ever since we left the Pizza Hut parking lot. I remember glancing behind us, and sure enough, some blacked out SUV was tailgating us.
That's a smart man. That's a Adidas smart man. Whenever I'm driving, don't best believe I'm a cautious or conscious driver. I notice a lot of things. As especially when you've been driving for a while, you just notice a lot of things. Like a lot of things just comes, second nature to you. Like whenever I'm driving, I notice a lot of shit. I notice my car itself. I notice the tires. I notice the music. I notice the engine. I notice the people around me. I notice their tires. I notice the people, to the left of me, to the right of me, in front of me, behind me, I notice well in advance in front of me, well in advance behind me, I just noticed a lot of shit. And that's one of the things I would have noticed too. Somebody following me? Come on. I'm constantly looking in my rearview mirror.
My dad mentioned how we needed to verify if this car was actually following us. He proceeded to pull into the next street and do a few turns just to get back onto the main road. I will never forget that feeling, that sinking feeling, as I watched the car sharply turn back behind ours. Now, it was around 9 p.m. on a weekday, so there weren't that many cars on the road. The car behind us then put its high beams on, and at that point my dad was completely focused. He had fully shut me out, putting all his attention into losing whoever was following us. A few minutes of this went by, when he told me to grab his phone from his pocket, call someone in his contacts, and put it on speaker. My hands were shaking at this point. I could barely press the buttons. I remember a cheerful voice answered, but before the guy could say anything else, my dad quickly summarized the situation. There was a pause, and I could hear voices speaking in the background, along with radio beeping sounds. My dad was yelling at me to keep naming the streets we were on to the guy on the phone, as at that point my dad was still randomly turning down different streets, trying to lose the car behind us. Okay, turn into Tesco Car Park. It's coming up on your left. We've got 3 response vehicles coming in from the other direction. My dad responded, and as we swung into the near empty car park, with the car behind us still in close pursuit, blue and red lights quickly surrounded us in what felt like all directions. The sound of sirens was deafening. My dad bolted out of the car and ran in some direction. After a few minutes of shouting, the driver's side door swung open. My dad got in and calmly started driving away. As we turned around in the car park, back towards the entrance, I could see the police surrounding the vehicle that had been following us, and 3 men in what looked like to be their late 20s were handcuffed leaning over the car.
Oh, shit.
On our way home, my dad told me everything. He explained that he was on a drugs team that dealt with the interception of large shipments of drugs that were being transferred across the country, something I hadn't known until that point. He continued by saying people would lose a lot of money when they were caught, and some didn't like that, which sometimes resulted in specific officers being targeted. My dad would quit his job as a police officer a few years later, though he admits this was by far his most disturbing experience, especially considering I was along to witness it.
I think being a police officer has pros and I think everything has its pros and cons, but I just feel like police officers, it's just a lot more cons than anything because you're always on go, you're always on call. You know, even when you're not on the clock, you're not working. As an officer, I feel like you're always working. You know, you can't like not be you can't like not be in uniform and saying like you off today. Then you see like let's say you go in a restaurant on your off day, and it's a lot of people in there, and then somebody just pulls out a gun and say like this is a stick up or something. You can't just I feel like you can't just be in that same restaurant and be like, oh shit, huh. If I was an officer and if I was on the clock right now, I would have taken care of it, but I'm not. So I'm gonna go ahead and get down on the floor. No, that's not how that. I don't think that's how that works. You gotta do what you gotta do. You gotta be ready. You gotta be on call all the time. And I don't got time for that. Maybe some of y'all do. I don't. But then again, it's like you can be in a situation. You can be in a situation where it's just you and like 15 other people. Like you can't do nothing. You gonna get clucked up. What if you find yourself in a paranormal situation? You can't shoot no ghosts. Like it's not for me. It is not for me. Got all of that. But my respects, hands down, to all the officers and law enforcement and security guards and security of any sorts. My hands go out to you. I'll bow down to y'all because y'all first and foremost. Y'all go in head first. Hell no, not me. Jesus. I run first. I don't protect first. Keep it cool, keep it classy, and I love you. Stay happy, my family.